Oh, hello. There we go.
Oh,
you didn't see anything.
Back to your roost. Nope. Back to your roost. Yes. It's okay. Buttons. It's still buttons. It's all good.
I wasn't driving. Not my fault.
Nice.
You were navigating though.
No. See, bus Simon.
Okay. Yeah. Other way.
Right. Let's crack on. So,
we are cracking on.
All right. Where are we?
We are cracked. All right. Do's and don'ts. Be nice. Be respectful. Be constructive. This isn't Reddit. We have standards. Don't post anything that's adult, rude, offensive. Don't advertise or promote anything. This is not the place to say, I need a job. Please hire me. Don't spam your question over and over and over and over again. Every time you ask a question, we move it to the bottom of the list. If you asked it before, we take it off the spot where you were higher and you end up back at the bottom of the list. Good way to stay there all day is to keep asking your question. And harassment of any kind is not tolerated, of course. Incels, misogyny, blah, blah, blah. And we share ban lists. So if you get stupid here, odds are you're not going to be able to log in a whole lot of other places. Oh, and have fun.
Yeah.
Let's do some introductions. My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO of Dev Angels London, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott.
I am Scott Stahl. I am a community leader, organizer GDG Cleveland. I do a whole bunch of other stuff that you don't care about, but adopt big, black, and old dogs, especially pit bulls. But and odds are that I can be found sometimes underneath the stairs sharing a desk with Dobby at Dev Angels London. Randall.
Yes. Randall.
And I'm Randall. I'm Randall Schwartz. And if you're on any of the socials for Flutter, you probably have seen me more than once, more than millions of times probably. I'm a Dart Flutter Google developer expert, one of the original crew. And I am also the question magician, we call me, on this show. So I am watching the live chat that we have. Thank you to all the people that show up live. And watching for when you put Q: in front of your question. When you do that, I flag it, we answer it. So everything that isn't marked with a Q, I ignore. I presume it's just chat amongst yourselves, which also happens. And we appreciate that as well. So put Q in it if you want to be in our queue. Oh, there's that bad pun once again.
Every week.
It was nice having you, Randall. Bye.
Hey, then I got nothing to do. I can go back to sleep.
And we're also joined today with Danielle. Danielle, welcome to the stage.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. I'm Danielle.
Hey.
I live in Florida in the U.S. I'm a Flutter developer. I am an organizer of the Flutteristas. We just had our International Women's Day meeting. So happy International Women's Day to everybody out there.
Yes.
It's an important thing that we have, and it's if you don't understand why, take a look at Nilai's tweet that she did last at midnight, her time about it, and it's talks about why we need it. It's pretty powerful. I retweeted it, so if you want to find it through me, you can. But I've got to figure anybody that knows me knows Nilai. So anyway, actually, hey, I'm actually an organizer of GDG Miami too. So Scott saying that made me think of that. So anyway, and that's me. So hi.
Yeah.
And
Welcome back.
I keep wanting to I'm going to come here enough until you guys promote me to the main cast.
Yeah, there we go.
And one of the funny things is that there's going to be a GDG summit, and word is that Danielle can get there on a skateboard.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because it's going to be in Miami.
Absolutely. It's going to be having people around for that. Absolutely. Yeah. Scott tells me I've only got 2.5 more years to go till I get promoted to main cast.
Yep, it's about what my schedule has been. So yes. Cool.
I don't know. I mean, we're a cast of characters, and you're pretty much already there.
Yeah, right. We're just ASCII characters, though. She's Unicode. It's much more fun.
Oh dear! Oh dear!
Yeah, absolutely.
The puns are still here.
you keep chasing away. That's awesome.
So, yeah, and just to yeah, where are we? Should we? I mean, has anyone got any news in the Flutter sphere as of the past week? I don't know.
IO was announced. That's
we got a little bit.
Yeah. That was last night, wasn't it?
What was that, Randall?
Yeah. What?
What? Who?
Actually, I was asking what. You kind of broke up a little bit on this end.
For what part of it? IO got announced.
Something
That's
yesterday.
all I said.
Oh, IO got announced. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, I have already registered for the online.
We obviously rehearsed for this show multiple times before we come on the air. Yes.
I saw I just before the show I did see this cool little tweet here. Has anyone seen this one? Let's see if I can. Would that go full screen? I don't know. Does everyone see this full screen?
I see that. Mm-hmm. I see it full screen.
Yeah. Look at this. That's pretty cool.
Ooh.
What? That was
How
really
does
cool.
It do that?
Absolutely. That's amazing. I'm presuming it's using camera. That's amazing.
So everything
It's
everything
a nice
on that screen.
Effect, right?
Wow.
I would say everything on the screen must be green. It might be blue.
No. So basically, it's I'm assuming he's got an inversion of it as well. He's just using. Well, I'm assuming he's using the clip. There's a way of clipping out anyway from a canvas, and then behind that you've got your texture view with your camera, right?
Yeah.
But it's just kind of looks transparent. It's just transparent. It's just a really nice effect, right?
Yeah, you have to be at the right distance from the screen to make it work because it's like.
That's why. I think that's why he's holding.
Now I see.
That's why he holds it close, right? Because you hold it close and you can see it. But obviously, here's an example. It's obviously not transparent. It's an actual device, right? But if I can get it, there you go. You can see the difference between the edge of the thing and the.
It's amazing.
But this is cool. This is. I'll post this tweet in the channel for anyone.
That would really mess with some people's heads. Yeah,
it's awesome. I mean, it's obviously using the camera because it's got the green dot. But that is amazing. Yeah. So that is amazing. I really enjoyed seeing that when I saw that.
Yeah, it's slick. Very slick.
Very much, James. Very much.
Yes. Several cool things on Twitter today. Yeah, absolutely. IO that. Yeah, absolutely.
And just news since last week, two of my favorite packages, RiverPod and FP Dart, are both moving forward very rapidly. In fact, I was just noticing there are updates more recently than the Dart SDK. That's you're really punching out stuff when you can actually be ahead of the SDK. Because
Remy's also pushing a lot of that stuff. So
yeah, exactly. It's good stuff.
Speaking of, where was it? Oh no, well that was on Mastodon. He was mentioning something about doing RiverPod with a server, making noises about that. So we shall see. Cool. One other thing for any of you poker players out there, we have totally unofficial, unlicensed, and Google doesn't even know they exist. Poker chips.
Yay!
You found a good use for your 3D printer then.
Yes.
Yep.
We are 3D printing Flutter and Dart poker chips. And we'll get together at I.O. and you can all give me your money.
Yep. There you go. But how do you map red, blue, and white? I don't know how to map red, blue, and white into those colors. I have no idea. Is there a significance to the colors? The standard poker chips are red, blue, and white.
These are off the Battlestar Galactica qubits. They're copper, brass, silver, gold, and Flutter blue.
Of course.
Right. That would have to be explained to me about what's 1, 5, 20, and so on.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, forget about how to play Pyramid. I mean, you have to play Pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. Got to learn to play Pyramid. But actually, I was thinking of another game called Colors, which would be rather twisted.
Okay.
Oh dear. Right, moving on.
The goal is not to get the most chips. The goal is to gather all of one color, which can really drive people crazy. Anyway.
Okay. Yes.
Right.
We have some questions already. That's what this show is about. You know, we do have questions. Well, we have live chat. We have live
It's
questions.
just this.
I like this first one.
Brennan just wants to get going, so he threw a question up.
Yeah, lots. Just lots.
How many concurrent requests can a server handle?
TikTok type app with over 100,000 people a day. So first of all,
that's not on one server.
Well, yeah, that's literally what I was about to say. So yeah.
Sorry.
So you want to look at requests per second. It's not concurrent requests. So a server, a computer, right? It doesn't forget server being specific, right? But a computer can only do one thing at a time, right? That's how it works, right? Now you have multiple cores, you have hyperthreading, so you can do very close to two things at once. But it is, strictly speaking, one core means one thing at once, right? So you may have your computer running. If you go look in your task manager or activity manager, you might see how many threads you've got running on your computer right now. It might be 10,000, 1,000 threads running right now, whatever. But only 3 or 4 of them are probably active. And you're lucky if you probably get 100 active threads at any time. So a lot of them are waiting for I/O to take place and things like that. So this is the same that happens when we're talking about request to a server. So it'll have one thread, the main isolate, right? And it'll be sitting there waiting for requests to come in. Now what you can do is you can spawn isolates with the new isolate.run. And then inside that, once you finish processing the request, you do isolate.exit. And it goes back to the pool. It's kind of pre-set up, shall we say, ready for the next request. So you can actually spin up multiple requests and handle multiple at once. But each one is, strictly speaking, on its own thread. It's a bit more complicated than that. Won't go into it. But so truthfully, how many you can handle is more about what you're doing and how good your server is. So if you've got a 96 core mega beast server, well, funny enough, you can do a lot more at once than someone with a 4-core server or a 2-core server, right? So it's nothing to do with Dart specifically, right? So first of all, Dart's HTTP 2 server will handle multiple. You can have listened on socket for multiple requests, and then you just start an isolate for each one. So I would suggest if you want to scale, then you do something like have like an isolate little group. You can do something like 8 isolates or something in your process. And then the idea is you start up with a container, and then you just have multiple containers running with load balancing on your in your cloud environment, whatever that might be. That's how you get 100,000, not 100,000. As you can tell right now, 100,000 people per day is more like 100,000 people per second of every day. On most, as I said, it's requests per second is what you want to think about. It's how quickly your server can handle each request, which talks about your throughput of numbers of requests. So if for example, is your app in general might be doing 5 requests a minute, 5 requests every 5 minutes or something like that. So an average of 1 request a minute. And from that sort of basis, you can then work out how many users you can actually have using your app based on your server capacity. And you can kind of estimate and see what it is. But truthfully, until you get it running, you don't know how it's going to react. So that's why it's always good to set up scaling groups or like cloud run scaling, whatever, so that when the certain number of requests come in, it starts up another server and another server and another server. Obviously limited, so you don't spend lots of money. But the point here is that way you don't get what we used to call the slash dot effect. Is that still a thing? Slash dot effect. Basically, if those people that don't know, Slashdot was a technology news site. I think it's still around, right? I don't know. I've never been on there for years.
It's still around, and it's now sort of the Reddit effect, I think, is what people are typically talking about. But that was a few years ago still. So, yeah.
So it's the same sort of thing. Basically, you get a link to your website or your service or your app gets posted on some very popular media site, and it gets viral, and then everyone shares it. And suddenly, you get a lot of people using your app, a lot of hits to your server, which is great. But this is where a lot of people fail with apps if they start up this is why Firebase can be a good start for some people, because it just works, it's done for you. But if you've got your own APIs and you've got that, make sure it scales, because the last thing you want to do is have all this nice viral news happening and people interested about your product, and suddenly your product just stalls and falls on its ass, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's really, really crap. It's really slow. It doesn't work," and you get all the bad press from all those hundreds of thousands of people, and that's it. Game over. App gone. Right? You've got cancelled. so yeah. The reason why is, I've gone on now about this one. Anyone want to add?
Well, I just want to add the random fact that I did the math: 86,400 seconds in a day. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
And 168 hours in a week, which I use frequently.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. So, but I mean, the point applies overall, and Simon kind of said this also, though. It really does depend on what's going on. So if you're leaving connections open, it's not, that is concurrent. Concurrent is going to, definitely run out a lot faster than simultaneous. If things happening, coming in and going out and closing the connection and stuff. And it definitely depends on what you're doing. So, if you're, if you're saying TikTok type app, if it's downloading, hundreds of megabytes for each connection, that's going to be a lot different than if it's just grabbing a status of something, that you can do in a few bytes.
It's also worth saying, a lot of people did the same. I'd say it's a mistake in early web. It was at the time. I'd say it was probably the only way of doing it. But a lot of people would take an image, let's say, and pipe it through PHP, and to get it down to so you might have an image endpoint or something to get images. And the problem here is that now the image data has to go through your web server, be processed in some fashion, and get output back down to the user. And that just eats up resources when the user can go get it straight from the bucket or whatever, your storage media, where the images. And that's kind of where we're at nowadays, where you don't normally send those videos on TikTok. They don't come from the API at all. What comes from the API is a URL, right? So, and maybe a key, a token to go watch it or whatever. And then the app will go fetch it from an edge node on a CDN. And that's a whole different thing. That's content delivery network. And basically, in short, I just briefly cover it since we're talking about it. And that is all around a content delivery network. There's several major players, and they all have servers in lots of data centers all around the world. And the idea is that when you get sent a link, it will direct you to your nearest server. So this way, there's a couple of great things about this. One is the traffic doesn't sort of should we say, it doesn't cause a lot of traffic on the internet. So it keeps your traffic in the local space. So, for example, let's say I run an app and it only exists in London, and Danielle's in Florida. All her traffic's going to have to go across the Atlantic, whatever, link to London, to the data center in London for all the transit for the app. But then that link needs to be used for lots of other apps and lots of other things. So the idea is you want to keep it local. It also means that because of the speed of light and the transit of computer data exchange online, it takes a certain number of milliseconds for you to get that data. And the faster you can get that, the better. And that's your lag time or ping time in games, right? So, anyway, I'll shut up now. But yeah, in short,
we should handle this immediately because it is relevant.
Can any of us besides
I'm
Randall
actually
answer
putting
it?
a correction in there right now.
The next show, it's not 168 hours from now. It's 167 because of DST kicking in the US.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so that's just an important thing. Twice a year, we're out of sync with the UK, which throws Simon off. But
no,
we're doing it based on Google headquarters time. So there we go.
Someone made the horrible mistake of involving time zones in a conversation with Randall in the room.
We should do. Hey, Nilay. We should do. Was it astronomical universal coordinate time, whatever it is? So we're 3 years ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, there we go. That'll be useful.
Yes.
That'll be fun.
Let's
add in leap seconds.
So let me guess.
Less.
When it's noon in our time, it'll be 3:17 for the rest of the world.
Something
Something strange. It's the U.S. does these weird off by 2 weeks from the rest of the world. Yeah.
I mean, since we're just talking about servers and stuff and time, I would say that is one interesting thing, though. You'll find that when you use Firestore, for example, it has server timestamp as a thing where you want it once the data's been received, set the date time of your data to that, because then everything becomes in sequence with the server, right? Whereas, like, that's a really difficult problem to have when you have leap seconds and you have time that changes. And Google do a thing, an interesting thing on their servers where they call second smearing, I think it is, or time smearing. Well, basically, they use they add very small fractions of time over, I think it is, over a very long period of time to basically account for the leap second. So it can be that the clocks in the Google servers become slightly out of sync with others. And this happens all around the world all the time, this kind of thing. But it messes up data transit because computers are now so quick.
Leap seconds are officially over, according to the time zone mailing list. There's no leap seconds ever again. It's just they're just going to let it get out of sync.
There is a time zone mailing list.
Yes, I've been on it for 20 years. 20 years.
Oh, God.
I've been on that.
Right, moving on. All right, what's the next question?
My question is this: if UTC does a savings time, what happens when you have repeated UTC values?
Right. Moving on.
Moving on. It'll never be that. Don't worry about that.
Lovely question. Right, go on.
It's a useless question.
What is the best way to work with thermal printers in Flutter correctly? I mean, it's a piece of hardware, so we're definitely going to have to use a method channel, right, to go through the OS. No.
Nope.
Oh, JSON?
Nope. All
right. Smoke signals.
So both Epson. So I think ECS POS is Epson standard. Epson have this takes me back to my POS days. So they all run there's actually a standard protocol for communication. Oh God, stop. No more time zones. Right. Anyway, Epson have actually a standard for it, and it's basically an escape sequence. So you send a certain byte above ASCII, and then you can send a series of commands. You can say, send logo here, set picture this, draw barcode, all these kind of fun things you can do with these thermal printers. Anyway, and they could be sent directly to the device. So if you've got like a device plugged in on a COM port or on a USB port and things like that, you can actually communicate directly with them. You're just sending bytes. It's really straightforward. There's tons of examples of these out there, tons and tons of them. Obviously depends on how it literally ends up being because they're so simple. It ends up being the most straightforward and direct manner, because you start going down the route of like SDKs, method channels, and all this. You end up have this huge like abstraction stack to go and eventually do the same thing of sending a few bytes over a COM port. Honestly, you'd be better off like doing your own little thing in Dart, keeping it simple, and be able to debug it easily. Yeah, that's what I'd say is the best way. I mean, anything else or anyone else?
You know more than we
I'm
do.
getting ready for upcoming questions.
I'm going to have to, just a note on those people that are joining the chat now. Get your questions in the chat with Q in front of them, and then we can get them answered on the stream.
It's a short show today, folks.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it
just
short
to
today.
let you know. Yeah, we really need to keep it short.
Yeah, so Epson. Epson. That's it. Here we go. Here, I'm gonna bring this up on the stream since I'm here. How do I share? Am I sharing? Yeah, I am sharing. Here we go. Let's do this. Here you go. Look, TM printer escape pos command tech ref. Is this some manual or something? I don't know. No, completely the wrong thing. I'm sure there'll be a general PDF. Let's see. Here we go. Reference manual, 1997. There you go. Perfect.
Very nice.
And here you go. Look, set printable area, select characters, select a font, all this kind of fun stuff. And basically, like every Epson printer it tells you how to calculate the point size, the unit sizes that you use. There you go. So this is the sequence that you send. So let me bring it up. Yeah. So escape, which is like the escape. So it's mentioned above. It'll be like a 1 byte that you send. You send a left bracket and then a C, and then you can send your page length and so on and so forth. And this sort of all the different commands that you can run to the printer. And one of these will be like select bold font, cancel bold font. So you you send these 2 bytes, and everything in between will be printed in bold. You send characters after that, ASCII characters, and print them. And there's ones in here for printing color graphics. There you go. So you can send like a bit image to it after you send like the escape sequence. Each of the commands will be expressed further down in their sequence. Here you go. So the escape byte is 1B which is a standard escape sequence, actually, like anti-escape sequence. 1B is hex or 27 in decimal. You send that 1 byte and then followed by the cancel, and that will do this command, and it tells you what each byte that follows and what it should be, and that's it. I'll put this in the chat if anyone's interested. But this, I remember many a day looking at this document. So fun times. But so I actually did some receipt printing stuff in Android a long time ago.
Wow.
For point of sale.
The receipt printing stuff I've done use some sort of SOAP XML kind of thing, and that was a lot of fun. There's normal network.
Yeah, I mean, there's just honestly just go find the printers. They have specs like sheets like this is from printnuts@epson.com. You can go find these sort of spec files from all sorts of companies, and then you just implement them. How else do you think the SDKs are made, right? Simple as that, really. Right, moving on. Hope that helps. I don't know. I think that's ECS was meant to be escape. ESC, right? Yeah. All right.
And by the way, also I would just say if you do something with it, I would encourage you to make a package.
Yes,
I think that'd be wonderful.
Is there already one there? Did anyone check? I didn't check. We should check.
I didn't check, but
that's definitely the first thing you do, right? As soon as you let's just see if I can find one. Epson. So we could look. Oh, Epson ePOS, the first pack discover. This plugin allows Flutter apps to discover printers and send data to Epson ePOS printers. It says Android and iOS support, so this may not go directly, but you definitely can go direct with some of these things, like use the TCP stuff directly. This sounds to me like it's using instead of a COM port or USB, it's using TCP, which again you can do, right? You use the discovery protocol where you broadcast, and then you get back a packet from the printer with details about the printer, and then you put that in your list to display to the user. They select the printer, and now you have the IP address and port that you send the data to, and it's exactly the same format. So have a look around. Yeah. What's that? That helped you a lot. No problem. It looks like there's someone started one 2 years ago. I was just taking a quick look. I have no idea how good any of these things are. This looks like didn't get very far. But yeah, if you make one, definitely get. We'll feature here for sure because that's really cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
Next question, I guess. How to build an iOS plugin that uses a Swift package? Follow the guide. That is the basic guide.
Instructions.
This might be because. So let me be clear. This might be a Swift package manager. They use a Swift package from Swift package manager. I don't know how to do it. The system that Flutter uses is what's it called? Pods. Was it Podspec?
Yeah.
Pod files. Podspec.
Pod.
Yeah.
Pod.
No, but what?
Pods. Like in that movie.
Yeah, but there's CocoaPods. Sorry, CocoaPods.
Yeah, CocoaPods.
So I use CocoaPod Package Manager. So when you build a package, you get a pod spec file created for you. You can add your dependencies in there. So if you literally find, in fact, we could go take a quick look here. Hang on. Should we try Cloud Firestore? That's got to have some, right? So I'll try it. And let's bring this up on stream like this. So this is the Cloud Firestore repository. And if we go iOS, there's your. Oh, so you're all in the way. You're going to have to get out. Let me get the question out of the way. There we go. You've got Cloud Pod file, and then in here, here's the dependencies. And these dependencies, it looks these up in CocoaPods, basically. These are local dependencies. You can have local dependencies as well. And then it also, if they're not local, then it looks them up on CocoaPods. Anyway, So you can specify dependency this way. There must be a way of probably specifying a Swift package dependency in a pod spec file. I would suggest you go look that one up and see where it takes you. Anything to add from you?
The only thing I want to add just is for other people that may be watching, they're not quite as familiar on that. There's a difference between a package and a plugin. And so, it's probably worth mentioning that. And so the plugin is the part that goes in where you can call Swift code, or Swift code, not Swift code, and you can call Kotlin or you can call whatever, so you can do that from the plugin. And you would need a plugin for any platform you actually want it to run on. And a package is basically the Dart code that you can use, that may call, that may do that or whatever. But
there's also, to be clear, that there's also a whole section on over here on the left. Where is it? Packages and plugins.
Yeah.
Developing packages and plugins.
Right.
Have that load up. There we go. Which platform? Yeah. Anyway, this goes through like the difference here. You go like Dart packages, plugin packages, explaining that plugins have platform-specific code,
right. How
to generate them, all this fun stuff, how to define all your lovely interfaces and things, and what commands to use to generate the templates. I have to say one thing. If you're going to make a plugin, do me a favor, delete the default get platform version method. I'm not joking. Every other package that I see that's a plugin seems to leave that in there, like the default one, like it's just an example to show you here's how you get data from the platform to the app.
Right.
Don't leave it in there if it's not part of your interface. Just delete it. Anyway. Oh, plugins in Flutter new. What's this?
What is that?
New.
I don't know it either.
Plugins in Flutter tests. Oh, we got new documentation about it. Wrapping the plugin, mocking the API. Oh, we talk about this. It's great they've got some documentation on it now. Anyway, there is another section here, platform integration, which covers writing platform-specific code. And that's another page that you probably want to look at, which talks about, I'll pop these two in the chat here. So, I'll just pop that in the chat. Anyway, and this talks about graphing out how method channels work and all that kind of fun stuff. There's lots of documentation. So we're not shorted of really good documentation with Flutter. So that should get you in
most cases. Yeah. No, because for the people out there that may not be up to speed on a lot of this stuff, make sure you ask, if you don't understand something we say, find a way to find out.
Yeah. Ask here. That's
my thought.
Yeah, like ask more questions. Like
as long as it has to do with Flutter.
Right. Yeah.
Or program. I mean, like we do answer questions about design and programming and stuff. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Some
interviewing.
Yeah.
Right.
Just come back. Just come back in 166 hours.
I seem to impress someone recently. They were asking if I would be able to do a certain app, and I basically, instead of trying to please them, I acted skeptical, and I was like, "Are you ready for a designer? Do you have your UI sketch files? Have they been, have you considered material design? What kind of server do you want to use? Are you self-hosting? Is it going to be in the cloud? If you're doing video, what about DRM?" And I just avalanched them with all of the infrastructure questions. And they were like,
I see this all the time. I've seen it for years. People think an app is just what you see on your phone.
Yep.
And
even then they stick us with all those things. They want us to be their designer, their cloud architect. They want us to set up their merchant accounts.
But this is understandable when they're not in the industry, they don't know, and they need someone to do that. They need someone to do that. But at that point, they're not asking for a developer. They're asking for they're not asking for a singular sort of developer. What they're asking for is a team. They need the people to actually do all those jobs.
Or a project manager.
Well, yeah,
project manager, yeah.
Blah blah blah. Anyway,
yes. Moving on.
Right. Next question.
Do we think Flutter developers will ever have to change the stack in the future of Flutter?
Yes.
Eventually, I mean, the guys who ran printing presses with the little blocks of wood thought they would have jobs forever too. But things eventually will change. Flutter came along on the backs of iOS and Android, and I think can do things better, but they can do it better because they have the advantage of learning from iOS and Android. And maybe in 10, 15 years or so, something will come along, having learned a lot from Flutter, and be able to top it.
I think the bar's
happen
been set
sooner
high,
or later.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the bar's been set high. I think the fact that it's open source and so the community is really involved will help delay that because I think anything that we need to be able to do right now, we can do it. But I mean, are we going to have phones? Are we going to have web browsers in the future? I mean, what's the interface going to look like? So without knowing any of that stuff, I can't tell you for sure that Flutter's going to slide into that and fit whatever we've got. So
whatever eventually replaces it is going to have to be able to go to all the platforms because that's going to be the bar. People are going to say, I can develop in Flutter and hit 9 platforms right now. And for those of you who don't know, if it sounds like a high number, I'm including things like Fuchsia and Raspberry Pi and Internet of Things. But the bar, people are going to say, can this new thing hit all those platforms, or why would I want to have to develop 2, 3, 4 different times?
But I do want to get my opinion in here, though, that I would not let that bother you. I mean, right now, I think Flutter is a very solid way to go. And I would use it. I would not let the fact that at some point in the future, there may be some other disruption that happens that changes things.
At some point in the future, the sun's going to go supernova and we won't worry about it at all anyway. But we live in today.
Exactly. And the things that are going to disrupt Flutter, I think are going to disrupt everything. So.
Yeah, I mean, like a good example of that is what we're seeing with AI right now, right? That's been all over the news. It's moving so quickly. It's moving quicker by the second. All these big companies have complete AI companies like DeepMind from Google, from Alphabet. Sorry, it moves so quickly. So yeah, you can't predict the future, but right now it's a good choice. And it's like if someone says, if someone was asked me, can I build them an Android app? I'd use Flutter. It doesn't matter if it's going to be released on iOS, right? And same goes for that. If I'm going to build a desktop app, I'm going to use Flutter because it's not only is it great technology, it's fast technology, and I can use it well. So why not, right?
What about a web app?
Actually,
a web app.
Yes, a web app.
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway.
Oh, wait. There's something. Wait. I'm sorry. One sec.
For everybody that's watching, I'm just making a little bit of a joke, because there's lots of stuff. But an app, I would still do that. Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Yep.
It's too long. It's too long. Just
go.
Yeah.
Go on. For everybody,
Don't
sorry, I was just making a joke.
Flutter for websites.
Right, all right. Next question. All right. Let's go.
Yep.
Are Impeller improvements in Android as obvious as they are in iOS? Is it smart to use Impeller in just iOS and not an Android for a production app? First, I'm not sure it's smart to use Impeller in a production app, period, because it is still in preview in iOS, right? And I don't even, does it exist for Android at all?
And it doesn't, it's not, there's no, well, you might be able to experimentally turn on a flag, but it's not, they're not developing support for it directly. It's iOS first, then Android. So right now, the answer is you can't even do that. So I think that the thing is, once it comes in the future, then yes, there'll be obvious improvements in both Android and iOS. The improvements, yes, they've been directed towards iOS because the original issue came around from the original jank problem, as it was, which is about shader compilation, and just the way that iOS pipeline in graphics uses shaders and everything. So it's probably, what's the word? It because of the sort of extra because the level of abstraction has been removed, like there's a ski and a bunch of other stuff in between, then I think the answer is it will definitely see improvements on Android, basically, in short.
And I would just point out the fact that when they're doing stuff like this on iOS, iOS kind of needs it because Android, they have, Android's also Google. So I think there's a lot better ways to optimize that. Apple doesn't make things always as obvious what they've got to do. So I think a technology like Impeller is kind of more important, I think, in iOS because it's such a this opaque kind of setup.
Yep.
Cool.
about that, but it.
Sorry,
we have the Iditarod on television.
I muted you, Scott, so no one heard any of that. Sorry, I just unmuted you. Anyway, go on.
There we go. Yeah, sorry about that, but we have the Iditarod on television, and every time sled dogs come on the screen, our dog goes over and stands in front of it.
Wow.
So it's rather adorable. Anyway, Impeller, but yeah, and another thing too is Impeller's in preview. I'm trying to remember what the breakdown is. Isn't it it's stable, then dev, then beta, then alpha, then preview? So it's not even an alpha yet.
Yeah, but they might also do it completely differently, right? So it's still early days. Still early days. They're doing great work with it, and they're trying to solve the problems. They want people to enable Impeller to try it out, to raise tickets on any bugs they see with rendering, so they can get them solved, right? So just do that. That's what they need.
In short, they want you to break it, and then tell them
the beta testers.
Yeah,
be the beta testers.
Yep.
Keyboard Warrior says, "Where are we on with SEO? Exactly where we've always been.
Same place.
Frankly, right now, the Google team, it's not a priority.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line.
It should never be it shouldn't even be an issue. People shouldn't be using it. Shouldn't be using Flutter for anything that involves SEO. They should be making web apps.
Let's agree to disagree on that. I would like to see Flutter get to the point where we can. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
I don't know the performance is there. Breaking a website up into pages with. Yeah. I mean, you have to already deferred imports.
There are already things you can do by having meaningful. I forget what that's called. The annotations for alternate ways of reading the screen. Putting in semantics. There we go. Semantics. Putting in meta tags. I've written proof of concept scripts that change the header of your meta header for a web page. There are ways to do it. It's just not going to come in a package from Mountain View. That's it. So don't wait for that. Just do it. You can do what you need to do already.
See, and the way I look at it is it's like Jurassic Park. People are getting so wrapped up in the idea that they're not bothering to think of if they should. And I could remove a nail with this. It doesn't mean I should.
Yeah.
I will mention that that as we say web apps, right? And strictly speaking, the reason for that is that there's currently a high cost to download, right? You're downloading a framework, right? But in the future, I could see the fact that we might have a CDN, so that you only ever download it once. It comes from a separate location. There's all sorts of other things that can be done to optimize those things to make it better for more of a website experience. But it's not meant for that. It's not directed towards that. If you do, however, hang on. If you do want to build a website with Dart, you can already do that. You've always, since Dart day one, you've always been able to do that. And the package that we recommend at the moment is called Jasper. This is it here.
Yep.
This has been around a while. Basically, it gives you the same look and feel as Flutter use these components, run out with components, and this builds up your DOM tags and text and so on. And you still have to deal with CSS. And this is like a Jasper pad. This is like Dart pad, but for Jasper. And as you see, they got a river pod package and everything else. And here's an example here of you can type in location like Florida, I guess. And
this is made for the purpose. This isn't trying to use Flutter for this.
Right. So this is Dart, and with a similar API to Flutter to build for building sites, basically. But it's designed for the purpose of building sites, and it also supports server-side rendering, which is what you need for building good websites. So highly recommend. That's what people check out. I'll pop the link in the chat. That's the answer. Really.
Yes. Much better choice for doing web pages and websites.
I think there is something that we see, right? Like we've always seen since day one, that is people confuse Flutter and Dart together, right? Like Dart is the language. It has your hot reload. It does all that cool stuff. It's used on multiple platforms. Flutter is the UI toolkit, which deals with rendering to a canvas and still has that native component for each platform. But essentially, Flutter can't exist without Dart, but Dart can exist without Flutter, right? So, anyway.
Yes.
The next question, I guess.
What
But
does
Flutter can't
debug
exist
fill
without Dart.
What is debug fill properties used for? I actually was researching this while we were answering some other questions, and I'm going to put it in chat. But you will find it under the Flutter SDK in the packages Flutter lib source foundation directory under diagnostics.dart, starting at line 3154. This is
all
a
these
one
backslashes.
I mean, you can just
anyway.
Backslashes.
Getting to there's that too. But when you get to this, you see it's one little line. It has 205 lines of comment. So there is a whole lot of explanation on this thing that's way more than we can do.
Well,
up
I
here,
can
but
tell
you
you
might
what
want to put, there's that one too, that link.
Yeah, I'll put the link in there. I tell you what it's for. It's to fill out extra properties you can see in the debugger. There you go.
To fill out what you're breaking up, or I'm breaking up.
I'm not breaking up for anyone else. It's just you, Scott.
Just you.
So there's extra properties in it's probably your Bluetooth headset giving up something. What was I saying? Yes. So in the inspector, you'll see that when you view a widget or something else in the UI, you'll see it has like width, this, height, that for a size box, and all the other properties. Well, you can add additional properties with this. That's the idea. So when you've got a custom widget, you need to know extra debug information about how it's being laid out or what it's using, where the data is coming from, all that kind of fun stuff. You can add that into your widgets so that you can debug your apps better. There you go. Ta-da. Yeah, I don't think it's logged anywhere. It does anything else but give you part of the diagnostics tree for debugging.
Yep.
Although you could log it, I guess. Oh, there is a capture tree. There is a capture tree. I haven't used that in a long time. There is a function that lets you capture a text tree, a dump of the entire UI layout, and I think it gives you all those properties as well.
Right. I remember that too. Yeah. You can point at a widget and say everything below this. Tell me your debug view. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Is it like describe tree or something?
Yeah, it's in either widget or state.
Here we go. Describe element. Oh, that gives you the diagnostic tree. Describe elements.
That's it, though. I think that's it.
I feel like there's maybe you can take a diagnostic node and actually convert it to a text. Somebody
that knows, send us email. We'll announce it next week.
Yeah. Oh, toString. Yeah, there is a toString. So sorry, let me bring this up on stream here. So what I just found was like an element is a context, by the way. So you can say describe elements, or there is also describe element as well. These give you back a diagnostic node, and that diagnostic node has a where was it? I've lost it now.
toString somewhere.
There's a toString method somewhere. I know I did. Yeah, toString.
Alphabetized, letter T. Yes.
I know. But anyway, this will give you like a dump of all those properties and everything else. But anyway, long story short, that can be good for if you get a crash and you want to capture like what the UI is like, all the information. Oh yeah, debug dump app. I knew there was somewhere. Yeah, okay, debug. Thanks,
Pascal.
Pascal, another GDE.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's one of the reasons I love being around for this show, anyways, because I still learn stuff.
Look, there's debug dump app, print a string representation of the current tree, textual representation of the layer tree, debug dump layer tree, focus tree, render tree, and semantics tree.
That's awesome.
There you go. And yeah, this goes into that and actually debug prints it out. But I'm pretty sure there's a way of capturing this.
Are those are globals? They're not even functions on the widget. They're just globals. No, what are they?
I want to know where this.
Oh, the function on the widgets. Function on the widgets.
So look, there you go. So it gets the root render view, and then does exactly what we just did. What we said: two string deep on the element. So you can actually call this directly yourself. This line here,
wow.
instead of printing out to a buffer and to the debug output with debug print, you could capture the output of this and output to your I don't know, Sentry or your logging stuff or whatever, right?
Nice.
So, anyway, there you go. Down the debug rabbit hole.
Yeah, nice. We're just about out of time for taking more questions if we want to keep this short. So I'll take questions for another 5 minutes, where then we'll cut you off. Please come back in 166 hours. 1 hour or less before the next show.
Which one is better to use for value notified builder or set state for text view controller change? Neither. There you go.
Well, text view controller changes within a single widget, right?
No. So what I mean is like a controller. So a change inside of the text view controller's contents, you mean, because it's already a change notifier. A controller on a text field, it already exists as a change notifier. But however, if you're trying to say, should you use set state or value notifier to change the controller that you're using, then yeah, obviously you need another layer of state management on top of that, right? But yeah, no, in truthfulness, a text field controller is already a listenable. It already, I think it's change notifier, but you can plug that into any of like provider and all sorts, so that you can, I don't know, all the.
And the other thing too is something for a text field controller change. You could just use the onChange property to call a method. Or
you mean onChange the text field? You mean?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. What they want is onChanged instead of onSubmit, but it has an onChange property.
Well, no, this needs clarifications, because saying that which is better. The question is, are they trying to change the text field controller on a text field? Are they just wanting to monitor text field controllers changes, or are they trying to switch out the controller? Like this, you can interpret the question three different ways. Post again your question with clear, decisive, questionable points, and then we'll answer.
Yes.
There you go. Next.
Because I didn't even get to give my animated builder comment on that.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
Oh dear.
Oh sure, yeah.
Okay.
So if you're wanting to do something when it changes, you can even be in a stateless widget, and you can use an animated builder, and that's your animation, because all animation is animated builder is kind of poorly named. It's really a listenable builder, and so if you set the animation to be a listenable, and it will and then it'll rebuild whenever something changes on that. So that's also something you could do with it.
So
they changed the name of it to the thing I'm listening to changed builder.
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? So it takes a listenable, and a listenable, if you look at this, is the base class behind value notified, change notified, animation, value listable. And if you go look at the rest of them, look, custom painter, clipper, all these different things that you can actually listen to. And then on the system itself, a bunch of things already built in, as you can see here, like tab controllers, mouse tracking, restoration manager, scroll bar painting, scroll bar controller. All of these things can also be listened to. So you can have basically this all built into Flutter. And it does kind of irk me a little bit that people don't use listenable more often, to be honest.
Ooh.
But like
viewport offset. Viewport offset. You could track it as you're scrolling something.
Yep.
So viewport offset is literally how scrolling is tracked. So this is the underlying thing for scrolling. So what if you want to know, if you have two widgets, you actually have a widget called viewport. Viewport is the underlying widget of all scrolling content that's inside Flutter. And if you scroll down here, you'll see that basically you give it your direction, the standard stuff you have for a list view. And then you give it a viewport offset, which is just an instantiation of your own management. And then it has a builder method somewhere. That'll be the one place I can't look. Oh, slivers, sorry. And then is it viewport builder? See, I've messed up here. Hang on. No, sure, it's viewport. Render view. Maybe I'm thinking of viewport builder. Hang on. Scrollable. I forget. I think it's scrollable actually. Scrollable gives you Scrollable gives you a viewport builder. Scrollable hosts a viewport inside itself, and then this viewport builder gives you that viewport offset, and that's how you know where to move your content to. So when this change notifier, which is the viewport offset, changes, that's how your widget moves. It then updates its position, right? And then that's it. This is how you can do really cool effects. So you can actually listen to scroll controllers. They just change notifiers, right? You can listen to scroll controllers and have things move on the screen. So as you scroll down, a bar moves and stuff like that. There is a listable. That's a good question, Robert. There was a listable builder, but no, it's value listable builder. That was it. Which also is a problem.
Well, yeah,
right?
it's been around a long time though.
Well, value listable was added, but the problem with this is it only works with value listenables, right? A change notifier is not always a value listenable. It doesn't always have a singular value. So that's where animated builder still comes in, because it can be any listenable. It doesn't care about the value. This specifically was designed around the fact that it can deliver the value once it's been changed. So if we look in here about the implementation, which is these couple of lines here, basically you get given, you say, listen to this value listenable, this type in terms of counter. And when the value changes, it calls your builder method with the new value that was the contents.
Yeah, this is new. I've seen it in master. It's been added to master already.
Oh, really? They finally fixed this. Are they finally fixed
Yes. Yes. It's are you on the master?
Oh.
Are you on the master API? Oh, look at that! You got master docs. Master docs.
If anyone doesn't know, it's masterapi.flutter.dev, and you can get to the master documentation. So you can look at these upcoming things, right? So yeah, here, general purpose. Let's explore. So any subtype of listable, such as changeover, basically is this. Oh look, hang on a minute. If it's an animation, consider animated builder instead for readability. For readability.
For readability.
Readability. Legibility for a change.
So basically what we're saying is it's exactly the same widget. It's just named differently.
It's a convenience widget.
Same functionality, but
it's like the spacer that I made.
I think this idea is that if you were to introduce this, it would be nice for people to transition to this, and then animated builder to take an animation, right? To keep that with that. And it also means in the future, if you want to optimize animations or the refresh of the screen based around animations, there's a great builder for that works really well. Versus the listenable is meant for listenables, which have a different bias to screen refresh, right? They don't care about it.
And I won't be anywhere near as mysterious when we have listenable builder though. So
Yeah. I'm curious. What's the implementation? Same thing. Animated widget, which is the parent, and then it just calls the builder. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but I think they've changed the animated builder for that to actually then to basically
animated widget. Yeah.
So I think they're going to actually I think they've just extended that. That's what it looked like. It said.
Where did I see it? Because I know most of the advanced Flutter developers usually have little personal tricks that they like to do. They're not secret, but it's personal preference. I know a guy with a yellow hat who really likes to use animated builder to rebuild the whole widget tree on certain changes. And actually there was, I think it might be in the docs, something about changing the theme app wide using an animated builder at the root.
Wow.
And you trigger the animated builder when you have a theme wide, an app wide theme change, like dark mode, light mode, pink and purple mode, whatever.
There you go.
You don't think Yellow Hat Guy is where I got it from, do you?
What's that?
All right.
Oh yeah, the yellow hat guy. Yeah.
That's where I got it from. I'm a disciple, so.
There you go.
If you see here, there's a good example that debug field properties. So this custom widget that takes a listenable, they've added a property here called listenable with that parameter. So now they can see which listenable it's attached to this widget in the debug tree, right? Anyway, and then you can see here, all it does, listens to listenable, handle change, unlistens and listens again if the listenable changes, removes when it gets disposed, and then once it handles change, set state, and it calls build again.
Yep.
So there you go, super simple. I mean, and it's interesting. There is this pattern of widgets that we use. Sorry, the pattern that we use in building UI in Flutter is composition, right? This means that we're composing more complex widgets out of smaller, simpler widgets, right? However, there is to say that you can go overboard on that sometimes, where you're making these really complex layouts and things and behaviors from lots of different widgets doing lots of different interactions and callbacks, when doing a custom layout yourself using custom multi-child layout, custom single child layout, something like that would have been a lot simpler. So you can actually listen to your own stuff and have it rebuild your own way, right? So don't think you just have to use these widgets that are inside Flutter, right? Just saying that. All right. I guess next question.
Okay.
We've had
What
that
are
question.
CocoaPods and Fastlane?
Well, no.
Wait, no.
No.
Damn it. Sorry.
What are CocoaPods? So CocoaPods, I think CocoaPods, I can't remember how you spell it.
That's
Cocoa.
CocoaPods.
It's Cocoa, yeah. Right?
Cocoa.
Yeah,
COCOA?
so here's the website. It's cocoapods.org.
Yeah.
And if we search, I don't know, Firestore, no, Firebase probably. You go Firebase Instance ID, Firebase Core. And here is, so basically, once you build a package, you can upload it and it creates a pod spec. They run the entire spec system in GitHub. And here's the spec file. It's a package manager.
That doesn't tell people what do you do with it. That's what they're asking.
Yeah, and I'm trying to explain that. It's a package manager. So the idea is when you have a dependencies, you depend on Firebase Core, and you add that to your system. But this is all for iOS, right? So in most Flutter developers, you don't have to touch any of this stuff. It's only when something doesn't work on iOS you have to go kind of down that tree, right? Mm-hmm. Down that road. But for most times you don't need to. Yeah. So that's basically it, really. I mean, yeah.
I'm curious. I'm not an iOS person. I really would like to know this. Somebody came to me recently, like last week, saying that some people they were talking to about Flutter who were iOS native devs didn't like the idea that we use CocoaPods. So what are they doing now?
So Swift Package Manager is the new beast.
Okay.
So basically, CocoaPods existed for Objective-C, and it's been around a long time. And it's like anything; it's got long in the tooth. It's rather slow and clunky now compared to alternatives. So I really want to see Flutter transition to Swift Package Manager. And I think it's something that to get more adoption in the iOS sphere is definitely something that needs to happen. It's also going to take a time, right? Because you've got to imagine all the packages out there that use CocoaPods right now. There needs to be a correct, probably complicated process in terms of transitioning the entire package users ecosystem of Dart from pods to Swift Package Manager. And not all those pods are going to have Swift packages, right? Because there may be old ones, right? So it's not going to be nice, no matter how you slice the thing. But I think if we can start adding supports for Swift Package Manager, so we can use Swift packages, and there's an easy way of setting that up, right? It feels to me like it's probably better. Again, the iOS. I don't know enough about iOS ecosystem as a whole, but they've transitioned. So a lot of people have transitioned to Swift Package Manager. There must be an easy transition or a mechanism to transition, shall we say? In which case, we should start integrating.
I'm also wondering how well they coexist, so there doesn't have to be a flag day where it's either this or that, because that'll never fly.
What I would hope is that the base system of Flutter, in terms of integration with the shell for iOS, would be Swift Package Manager, and then we would have a specific build step or call out to pods, so that all the old packages and plugins still continue to work as they are right now. However, the system is now built off Swift Package Manager and uses, and it means that new packages and plugins can be developed with Swift Package Manager until we get to a point where we go, okay, now we're going to retire pods. All the up-to-date packages and all the things that are current right now are using Swift Package Manager. Let's get rid of the pod spec stuff and deprecate it.
I compare this to the fact that on my machine I have both Mac ports and Mac Brew, and I have to do that because there are certain packages that are only in ports. There are certain packages that are only in Brew, but both of them have to build their entire dependency infrastructure on their side. So I have 6 copies of Ruby. I have 5 copies of Python and Python 3 both. It's so weird. And then, my God.
Welcome to the life.
This is why my Mac is a dust collector.
You should see my path has like 17 entries in it, and I have to get them exactly in the right order because I want the Mac port one of this, but I want the Mac Brew one of that. Oh.
Welcome to the world of developers and configuring your build system. It literally is painful every single time. And once you get it right, you don't want to change it because it's a very balanced ecosystem of things that work for how you develop or what you're developing.
Yeah.
And each time you want to develop something new problems to your build environment. So
and then Puro. I really love Puro. Well, I want to talk about this show one more time. Puro is the replacement for FVM. Check it out. It's amazing. But one of the things it does for you, which is sort of nice for beginners, is it adds your path automatically to add its directory. And I go, no, my path is carefully artisanally controlled, very carefully. You can't add anything to my path. Don't do that.
The annoying thing about that, Randall, is we a bunch of people complain about things changing their path like that, which is understandable. Also, though, people complain when it's like it's so difficult to install because I've got to add something to my path. And I think it's
I know.
Just
if you're having trouble installing something to your path, you might want to consider a career change. As a developer,
there's some people though. There's still some people that are good users, good developers that don't totally understand the Unix notion of environments and how they float down.
Environment variables, how they work. I remember a time when Scott, you didn't know that, and I had to tell you. So
I understood path. I didn't work with the environment variables. By the way, just to throw something in here real quick, Robert did have one more interesting observation. Okay. Just use a builder and have multiple if and else if, but Robert, this will never pass a code review by Simon unless you use nested ternaries.
Just use it.
You have to use 10 or 12 nested ternaries inside a builder, inside the UI tree with all your logic there.
No, I don't. What? Never extract. No. What was that? What was that about?
It was joking around about something. Relax. Keep going. Fastlane, though, was the other half of that question. They did ask about what Fastlane is and use cases.
And Fastlane is a build system. There you go. It's more than a build system, isn't it? A build orchestrator. It's a meta build system, is what I'd call it.
You realize you just talked right over the heads of so many people. Explain it like they're five.
Well, so here's the thing, right? So let me give you the 5-year-old example explanation, right? So to compile your source code, you go Dart compile main.dart, right? And it gives you outputs like the final product, main.exe or something, right? Now, your program depends on having an image file in an assets folder. So another step of what you need to do to prepare your end program for distribution is to copy the assets folder over. And you have all these separate steps that you might need to do, like I'll copy a manifest file over, copy the README, copy the license, copy some source code because of GPL, blah, 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 blah. This is all the steps that are called building, right? You're building your final build artifact, which is the output of your build process. And that's what you distribute. Now, each language and each ecosystem has its own way of doing builds and has its own set of steps and processes to do those things. And the problem, of course, is that when you want, if you, let's say, have multiple languages being used in one project, you need to orchestrate them all together. And this is where build, so each, let's say Ruby has its build system, Dart has a build system, C++ has a build system. Now, but if your project depends on all three of those languages, you need a way of doing meta building. That is taking a step back and having something that orchestrates the three different build environments for those different languages. Now, it can also be a meta build system in terms of taking a step back and you make the instructions for a build system and that build system goes off and does the building. So it gets many levels deep. And as projects get larger and larger, these things get more complicated. So you need utilities and software to simplify it. So that's kind of where Fastlane comes in. You have recipes and things that people have already made that you can kind of piece together. So Fastlane will deploy to Play Store. It will deploy to TestFlight and whatever else your final artifacts. So that whole process is designed to be scriptable and accessible through a CLI environment. So Fastlane is quite popular in that, and it got popular. I believe I first heard about it from the Android and iOS side of things, but I know it's used in a lot of other areas now as well. But it's certainly not the only one. And think of it, Fastlane as like GitHub Actions would be the best sort of. I know it's not the same, but think of it like that kind of thing, right? You're sort of declaring how you want something to be built, made up of other people's recipes, basically. Yes, music. Right.
Ringtone. All right, moving on. Yes, we are over time, but let's get this done. Is there a way of approaching a large Flutter project that has many dev teams in a microservice type way? Would it even work in the context of Flutter? I'm not sure what they mean by microservice type way.
Okay, so microservices, the term came, totally overused term, but the term came from server-side development. So basically, a lot of server-side applications and systems, APIs, were always generated as a monolithic application. That is a huge, basically, you have to build everything to get a version. Just very, very much how you build apps, right? Now, we know from apps that you want to break it down into smaller packages so that people can work on different things and they're reusable. There's certain reasons to do that. So it kind of worked out that people realized in a server environment, you don't want to just deploy your entire backend service to one server. What you actually want to do is break it up and have, my notification for sending notifications to emails is its own little microservice. And then any one of my APIs that needs to send an email can communicate to that microservice and it can send the emails, right? Using our templates and our images and our whatever, right? So the idea of a microservice is about breaking up the units of your application to smaller parts and then having them intercommunicate. And there's whole things like XD for microservice location on a subnet and having like containers and Kubernetes and lots of cloud stuff. And I'm not going to go there. However, the point here being, the original question was, a large Flutter project has many devs. Is the way to break it up into those smaller chunks? And the answer is yes. You break it up into packages. And so there's actually a tool called Melos. Go look up Melos. That's made by the people at Invitace for managing exactly this. This is the Flutter Firebase infrastructure, should we say, or like set of libraries. They're interconnected, whole set of libraries that are very complicated. And to manage all those together, they built a tool called Melos that helps manage the mono repo of all these different packages, so they can run tests and things across multiple packages. This is exactly what you're looking for. You want something to orchestrate your multiple packages, and then those multiple packages can then be treated almost as microservices. So they can link. You can also do some fun stuff like, it all depends on what you want to do, but you could treat them more like microservices and do discovery. So you could even do like abstraction and discovery. But I feel like you're probably taking it too far there. If it's just about making large teams work together, like a large Flutter project with many devs work together, then multiple packages. Sorted. Do you have set developers working on one package?
To rephrase the same thing a little bit differently, just in case it went right past some people. What you have is you have one repo that contains multiple Flutter projects. Right. And some of these Flutter projects might be specific to backend. Some might be specific to just UI. Some might have elements that are common to all the above, and all kind of various. If it's a white label app, you might have different packages for each client, if anything is unusual between them. And you assign teams to each one of those packages. And the package, of course, is the individual project, so to speak. It can get a little bit hairy sometimes if everybody keeps reaching their fingers into the common, because that one does affect everybody else. But other than that, you're pretty much working in your own little isolated sandbox, and it can work really well.
I want to mention, sorry, Daniel, just 1 second about that common piece, is that if there is a point where everyone's colliding on common is too big, somebody's become monolithic itself, break it down further. So you might have UI, and then you might have like connection logic and this and that and providers. And break them down.
I'm sorry if I was vague on that. Common is basically the stuff that is used by all or most of the
Go on, Daniel.
of the other
Yeah.
packages.
The only thing I want to say is first off, I'm doing it like Scott said, where I've got a mono repo, but that is not at all a requirement to do this. If you are really separated, you could definitely have your, each package can be its own repo. That there's nothing that the solution has nothing to do with that. And I want to clarify, I chose to use a mono repo. So I've got my multiple packages in there, and mine's not even so much because it's such a huge team. It's just I've got different people working on different things at different times. And then the other thing I would say is the way you organize your code could buy you some time if you didn't want to go the full package route. You could, as long as you're organizing by feature, for example, where the code that a team's working on is isolated into a directory, you don't necessarily have to have that. That has its own. It's simpler, but it also has its own downside because, everybody has to kind of be up to date with what's going on if there are any cross dependencies. So.
Yeah, there's also like it's about how you architect your software, but also adding the other side of this is adding extra layers of abstraction and stuff, make it more complicated. So there's a very strict balance of complexity versus ease of use for developers, right? Like you don't want to sort of balance that too much. I will mention something that Danielle just said there, that the PubSpec file itself. Oh, let me get that up there. I'll put the link in the spec for the PubSpec. And you'll see on here under dependencies, if you go to package dependencies, I think that's on. You'll see that when you specify dependencies, this is what we're kind of used to. Let me make that a bit bigger, probably. This is what we're kind of used to, which is just it's package name and version. This comes from pub. However, you can also specify a path. These are local into your package or in your repo. This is how overrides work inside of Melos. I won't go into it now. You go look it up. But this, the other side of it, you can now do have hosted packages if you have your own package server. So if your company is that big and you have lots of packages you reuse in lots of different applications, boom, that also works. And then we've also got Git packages, and that's the other way of not having a mono repo. You can depend directly on other packages and branches in those packages. You can go further. So Git, you can reference a particular branch. To help, again, these can be HTTPS Git URLs, don't have to be Git SSH URLs. But the point here is that you can break up your project into multiple repos. It doesn't have to be one. If you're so inclined to set permissions or some other, I don't know what.
Well, if you went back to the package server, the custom package server solution, this one actually has the benefit of it's version controlled. So you can actually doing something like that. You actually could everybody else could use what's released, and you could keep working on yours, beta wise or whatever. And when you're building stuff, you can actually build it with actual, you can actually handle that properly. So you're not necessarily making a breaking change if you're, if parts of the app need to use the, if you've got an app that needs to use the old version versus the new version, you're not making, you have a breaking change. Something like this is a great way to go. Before you had to do it kind of with the Git, with the branch or the directory approach. And the other thing I would say, just as far as the directory stuff goes, I'm using a directory approach on my mono repo so that it's all together. But I'm using .. slash kind of things. I'm not using the that's a full path right there. The user's me transmortify.
Oh yeah, always. You probably want a relative path because obviously this would be break. So this is would only work on me's computer because that's their username, right? Yeah. You can put relative path, so .. something. Yeah. And in fact, if you use do that with Melos, it actually relates them locally as well. So if you have published packages and local packages, anyway. It's a path packages, and it talks about it all. And then you've also got packages that are built into your SDK, like Flutter localization, like Flutter driver, and they can also be sourced from there. That's what the SDK packages are. So if you care to kind of look in here and understand the differences and why we have the different versioning numbers and how they all work, you'll find lots and lots of information and best practice information and so on in the docs. So check out that link. There's also lots of fields that people, like issue tracker and things that people just don't use enough when they publish their packages. So,
nice.
Also, environment, which we normally specify. It's always good to put environment constraints. This is for Dart SDK version, but also you can add Flutter constraints in there. so that that someone, for some reason, let's say you're working on multiple projects with multiple different constraints on their minimum Flutter version, you don't actually have your channel set wrong, let's say, or your checked out version of Flutter set wrong per project when you check out the code base. So it's really good to specify your minimum, at least your minimum constraint.
Is anybody using that? I don't think I've seen that in any REPL at all.
Yeah. If you check out the top of every pub spec, you would at least have normally the templates issue.
The Dart one for sure. Yeah.
But Flutter I use that on literally every project.
Wow.
Especially when I add features. So like when we started using Super Dot, I made sure that the minimum was set up. But also, like, here's the thing, right? Conversely, each version of Flutter has different versions of Dart they ship with, right?
Right.
There's actually there's actually a list, isn't there? There's a list you can on the Flutter website where you can see which version matches. Yep. So again, by setting a Dart constraint, you're also saying at least this version of Flutter because it ships with it, right? But it gets even complicated when you have Dart installed separately to Flutter. I won't go there. But yeah, anyway, right, moving on. More questions, right? What do you think about Dart v3, v4, back-end side future? Can it replace Go and get the same efficiency from memory and performance perspective? I don't know where v4 is. V3 is the next one.
Right.
Or maybe it just means in the future.
Right.
It's an interesting one. I think that I don't know. I've not seen any direct comparison. I like Golang. I love Golang, in fact. And I've used it a lot over the years. And it has a very particular place in terms of that kind of systems level back-end programming. It's kind of designed for that. Dart doesn't necessarily hasn't directly been designed for that. However, it's been going in that direction. And I think there's a point in the future they could definitely overlap in terms of memory and performance perspective. The team would have to work at it. They're always working to improve the performance. And interesting enough, Dart is designed to work on memory constrained environments such as mobile. So it is kind of interesting. Conversely, on a server environment, you've got a lot of connections, a lot of throughput, a lot of things happening all at once, and it does add up. So that's where kind of Golang comes in for me. The messaging system on Golang and Go routines really trying to transform sort of back-end development I think Golang became popular for that. Rust is also picking up some speed in that environment as well. So in terms of systems level, so it replaces Rust pretty much replaces C++ and C development for everyone. There's a couple of alternatives, Carbon, I think, and a few others that are floating around. But Go is that kind of is a bit higher than in terms of Rust is very low level in the way that it builds, but it ends up fixing a lot of the problems that C++ has with safety, memory safety, and a bunch of other things. There's some reasons why you want to do it a certain way with like C++, but when it comes to server-side development, I think there's some overlap there, and there will be a continuing overlap into the future. I'd like to see a more sort of channel messaging ease of use. At the moment, isolates are still quite complicated, and they work in the same principles as is it channels? It's channels on Golang. It's been a while. So it might be interesting to get more of an intrinsic language level for sending messages between isolates. I feel like that would be really beneficial to Dart. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, sorry, I just monologued there for a bit, but
okay.
Yeah.
Your show. You can do what you want.
So
have you tried Golang?
no.
I've seen it a little bit. I saw enough of it to go, it's like everything else.
It's interesting. I haven't touched it in I still get all the most updates and everything else, but I just don't
question.
I just don't go as bare metal. Doesn't compile. No, it does not. It does not. So Go is bare metal as much as Dart is bare metal.
Yes, exactly the same.
So, I wouldn't say exactly the same. So there are differences, right? However, the point is, Dart does not interpret any of the code. It compiles to machine code, right? So when you compile AOT, it did not originally compile to AOT. So the VM euphemism still stays there in some of the languages and around the Dart ecosystem and how it works. But VM is the wrong name. It's not a virtual machine. It's a runtime, right? So, for example, the compile code doesn't compile in malloc.
I disagree with that. Yeah, Dart goes to actual assembly too. It's just going to a library that it also has to include, just like Go has to include libraries. It's not really any different.
Yeah. So first of all, Impeller is part of Flutter. It's nothing to do with Dart, first of all. And everything you do, go to actual assembly. But Dart has things like Impeller. Not following that at all. Oh, so goes to actual assembly. No, so does Dart go to assembly. Assembly is the name given to machine code. Machine code is actually the opcodes that the CPU directly reads, should we say. Assembly is the text readable representation of those of machine code. What I will say is that they both compile, they both have runtime environments. The runtime environments are slightly different. But the interesting thing about Dart's runtime environment, it has two. It has one that's for development and one for release. One is runtime for AOT, and that's statically compiled in the same as Go. But the development one is better than Go's, and that is the fact that it runs just-in-time compilation when you're using it. It also lets you hot reload code and a bunch of other things. The Dart debugging environment is a lot nicer than Go's in terms of sort of analyzing runtime. It was last time I looked. Now I haven't looked at Go's recently, so don't quote me on that one. But yeah, in generally speaking, it just works differently, right? But the end result is the same.
Speaking of hot reload on Dart, have you seen the interactive package? Package name is just interactive. You can actually type Dart at it, including importing packages, and it just works. It is using hot reload behind the scenes. So
so that's compiled with the. So that's the same as why mirrors doesn't work in AOT, because it's what should we say? It's part of the VM environment, put it that way. Yeah. Sorry, were you saying something, Daniel? Did you have to go?
Well, yeah, I was going to say we're at 90 minutes, so I was going to head out if that's okay.
Oh yeah. We just got 4 more questions, I think, in the queue. So if you need to head out. Don't worry. Sorry. Thanks for coming.
I'll leave everybody. Thanks for letting me here. Thanks everybody for watching, and I will leave you in these capable hands.
Cool.
I'll put the link to interactive in the chat room because it's
I think
it's sort of fun.
What is the name for that? REPL, isn't it? REPL.
Yeah, it's a REPL. It's definitely a REPL, and it's the most sophisticated REPL I've seen so far. I've seen some previous examples trying to get there, but this is amazing. And you can even point it at an existing Dart app, and it can run it sort of interactively.
If people don't know what we're talking about, REPL, REPL, is read, eval, print loop, interactive top-level language shell. It's basically what your Bash shell is in a certain way.
Yeah.
But mainly for programming languages like you see, like Python. Python, when you run Python, it gives you a prompt. You can just start typing Python code, import packages, do this stuff. And Dart has never really had that kind of sort of REPL environment. Anyway, so there's you said there's a package for that now, yeah? Interactive.
I just clicked it, yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. Let me just interactive.
Oh, it's fun. Don't start it up. You'll start playing with it. It's
I was just gonna bring it up on just kind of see what the package.
Okay. Yeah. Look, use any third-party library.
Hot reload supports full grammar in REPL. Play with existing code side by side. Nice. Oh, there you go. Look, so this is like your prompt. You can say, "Oh, I see. Okay." So normal shell commands, import, join, whatever. I can see this being really helpful and useful when it comes to like just wanting to just quickly type some code out and just see it run. like there's several times when I like one of the nice things has been about in Python in the past has been that kind of just type it and go. So if you needed to, let's say, take a list or a CSV file, process it in some fashion, spit it back out again, it's kind of like that singular unit piece of work is great for REPL, right?
Right. Yeah, this works great for that. There's no editor though. If you blow the syntax, it throws it away. So it's kind of pointless there. You have to get it right. But if you get it right, it's actually pretty cool. Maybe they'll add an editor someday, or maybe there was one in there and I just didn't figure out how to tie it into Emacs or VS Code or something. So yeah, it's very slick though. Very slick.
It might be interesting to actually have something like that be shipped and tied into Flutter/Dart a bit better. Like having an active prompt to your actively running application would be. Imagine that. So you already have the Dart environment. Imagine having like a prompt where you can say, "What is the value of this variable?" and just be able to type that. Like you can kind of do evaluation inside the debugger, right? But it's not really the same as having a proper sort of command line interface to something, right? Anyway,
right.
Our next question. We'll get to the last few questions. Come on.
Yeah.
Right.
Fine.
How valuable are Flutter apps when host platforms are compromised, e.g., log4j type stuff? That's a good question. There's no real difference, right? So first of all, log4j is very Java, and that's a completely different thing altogether, right? So Java is an interpreted environment. It has a whole bunch of things around that. However, if a host system is if a system that runs Flutter code is compromised, the Flutter code is compromised. You could, if you want to, you could just change the bytes of the machine code and have it do whatever you want. But that's the same with any app running on that compromised machine, right? Once the machine is compromised, it's compromised, right? Nothing is secure on it anymore. You've got past the security. It's like saying when a box is rooted, that's it. They have full access to every permission of the box. They can run whatever code they want. They can store whatever they want. They can store drivers. They can install a rootkit, do whatever, right? So at that point, yes, a Flutter app is no more vulnerable to any other app, right? However, reverse engineering and sort of decompiling Flutter apps is a lot harder, especially because they compile to machine code, than it would be for a sort of standard Android application. Standard Android applications are a lot easier to reverse engineer because they're shipped in an intermediary bytecode format called DEX, and DEX is very simplified, right? The complexities of interactions of machine code and assembly at that level, and the nature of the way the processor reads it means that it's not easy to sort of go from low level to high level, right? However, intermediary codes, or I code, which is the form between machine code and your source code, which is what DEX is, and a lot of like all .NET uses IL code, IL assembler, which is intermediary level assembler, which is basically the same thing, but the instructions are like create object, whereas in assembler it would be like allocate memory, set this in the counting, move this around. It's a lot fine sort of low level instructions, whereas in the intermediate level it's a lot higher level. So it's like create object, set field to value y, right? So although it's something you wouldn't want to program in, you could read it just the same, and it's easier to take that and make it a higher level than it is to go from machine code. So in short, Flutter apps are more secure just by their nature than other apps. But yeah, that's it depends on the platform. It depends on what you're building and so on and so forth. And Flutter apps can have obfuscation turned on, and you can also, because they're natively compiled, there's a bunch of utilities, especially from security vendors and other places, that encrypt programs and make them polymorphic and self-changing and so on and so forth. And those things would also protect them somewhat against reverse engineering. But at the end of the day, if someone has access to your software, it's just enough time, and they can figure out how it works and compromise it in some fashion. Okay, so one of the things that we've seen recently, in fact, someone I know, John, who's come to this chat a few times, John Cummings, he was telling me about a new website that lets you do some graphical, I think it was like some 3-dimensional like drawing environment, right? So think of Maya or one of those kind of 3D programs. I'm showing my age. But basically, what it would do is all your interactions on the screen would be sent to the server. The server would run all the code to make the UI and do everything else, and it would send back an image or a video stream of the UI. So basically, your website that you're on is a what you call a dumb terminal. It literally is the display and input. That's it. The actual logic, everything to do with the app is sitting on the server. This means there's nothing to hack. There's nothing to copy. There's nothing to, how did they do this 3D drawing thing? I can't find out because it sits on another computer. I've got no access to it. So think of, what was that Google, Randall, what was the Google,
Sure.
What was that Google VR experience? Google gaming experience stuff.
Glasses? Google Glasses? No.
No, it wasn't the VR. It was, what was it? Was it VR? The Google
I'm not a
game.
gamer. I'm not a gamer thing, so
Google
I don't know.
Streaming. Does anyone remember? Come on, chat, help me out.
Chat room's usually good at this.
Stadia. That's it. Thanks, Christian. So Stadia did the same thing. Basically, all the games are running on the server side, and then you're just seeing the video and all your inputs and interaction being sent to the server. And again, nothing. There's no code to download. There's nothing running on your machine. But that all is about having a really good connection then, which, as we know, is not always easy. There's still going to be a certain amount of stuff that sits in app. I really want to see, so something I've been thinking about and I would like to do at some point was this kind of maybe notion of almost server-side rendering for apps. So that very similar approach where what you're sending back to the app is the representation of the tree, and then and what you're seeing on and all the logic for the actual application sits on the server. So when you tap on something, you get a callback. It actually sends a request to the server and returns back. Depends on how good the connection is. I kind of wonder if that's kind of a good idea or a bad idea. But it's kind of interesting because from a security perspective, as long as you can validate the connection in some fashion, then there's nothing to compromise on the client side. All right, Amir says you may not want to believe, but I'm still trying to get my first job. I guess.
Yeah,
I'm in Iran, and all these jobs positions are for seniors. What should a junior dev do to get companies' attention? Build stuff.
Yes. Make
your own apps. If you can have a GitHub account and you can have a portfolio of all these examples of your good work, and you did everything, these cool graphics, these cool effects, these cool like interactions, the code is just there. It's like saying, I'm brilliant. Look, why don't you employ me? It doesn't matter that I've got no real world experience in the company. I can learn that stuff on the job, right? Oh, you want me to work with a team of other people? I can work with that. You need me to do, fill out forms and do whatever I need to do to work in that sort of that business. Sure, do it. But the key here is that they're employing you for that skill, the one that you've represented and shown inside your portfolio. So, build.
Please don't build another to-do app or another. Oh, I can't tell you how many questions I get, probably at least 3 or 4 a week, seeing these questions of, how do I do this question randomly with that answer and ask for what answer? Why is everybody building the same app? Stop that. A question answer app has been overdone.
You know why? They're doing it again because it's in a tutorial. Right?
Really?
Well, a lot of people follow tutorials of like to-do app, how to build your own to-do app as a tutorial, right? And when they get stuck, they go to a Q&A site like Stack Overflow to post their questions. Yeah. So you get hundreds of questions about that one tutorial.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, is it's really I've never built an app for myself.
Okay.
Not once. Right. I've never come up with my own idea going, I wish I had an app that did this and I built it. And don't get me wrong. I mean, like a mobile phone app. I've done some desktop apps and scripts and all that kind of stuff, the usual thing. But I've never thought I want this mobile phone app and I'm going to start up a company or a business. And I'm going to do that because nothing's come to me that I would put that much of my time and effort into doing that. It's nothing's I felt as been that thing.
I'm totally there. I'm exactly. I only have one app idea, and I'm slowly working on it. It's not going to make me $1 million. I know that. It's probably not even going to make me $10 unless my friends chip into a tip jar or something. But it's a cute little idea, and I want to get it finished. I've written one app that I show off to people on my phone to go, I wrote this. Just as when people ask me, what do you do? I write mobile apps and stuff. And so I show them this, and that's it. That's really about the limit of my creativity. I've learned that I'm much better first lieutenant than I am a captain. And so I'm really good at letting somebody else come up with the idea, and I'll tell you how to build it, but let somebody else come up with the idea.
It's exactly why I'm at with all the stuff that I do. Is like, I can solutionize. I can show you how the best way to approach that problem and build it and everything. But I don't really have any interest in starting up my own thing. So
Nope, me neither.
What do you think of Shorebird? Oh, this is Eric Seidel's new project. Can you explain the advantages of code push and limitations, and what does it mean for the future of Flutter? Will front end programming lose importance?
Ooh, the opposite of that.
So just because you can push code doesn't mean it makes it any less important than it is right now. You still need to code it, right? Yeah. The point is that you just code and it gets transmitted to the current users of your app rather than having to install new apps. So think of code push as hot reload, right? Yeah. Like the idea is that you can deploy code. There's obviously certain limitations to that and everything else. It gets very complicated, and that's why projects like Shorebird exist to simplify that problem and have a product at the end of it.
There have been packages in the past in the pub that do something like what Shorebird says they're about to do. But again, we're back to the problems of just because it's technically possible, is it going to be allowed by the stores? And that's the biggest issue right now, because the stores both have rules about interpretive code being downloaded that may or may not change the nature of what the app was originally approved to do. And the stores want control over the ultimate end user experience. If you can change 90% of your code out with something else and make it an entirely different app, they don't want that. They're not going to allow that ever. Ever.
I'll give you an example here. The example is you made a card game and you send the app up to the app stores and you got approval and it went out, but it had code push inside. And what happens is the next week you go, I want a racing card game. I don't want a card game anymore. So you push the code for a card game. Now, the Play Store only authorized a card game. They did not authorize the racing card game. Therefore, they're not happy. Now, strictly speaking, it also is about like checking for viruses and checking for malicious activity. Code push has other complexities around that. So I think the interesting thing is your app is on a mobile environment, your app is running in a sandbox, has quite a lot of limitations compared to like a PC environment and other things. In fact, a lot of desktop environments now have more sandboxing now, but it's still nowhere near as tightly controlled as the mobile environment. And the sandboxing, by the way, is this kind of notion of controlling the input and output to an application. So like the application wants to show an activity to the user. Well, that's all controlled by the operating system. You just request for it to be shown. If you want to interact between applications, that's again goes through in Android it's called the binder, but basically this notion of inter-process communication is heavily regulated, should we say? But anyway, so as you said with code push, there's lots of complexities around this, and the real problem is with the stores. And I think it's more about sorry, this is a follow-up on this. I just want to bring it up on screen here. Where was it? I don't think the Apple App Store can block code push anymore because it's a huge hassle to handle all those users having different versions on prod. Companies use web instead of mobile just because of this. I mean, the thing is, there is that kind of notion of they need a better way of managing this. But what I suspect is we're going to see. I have a feeling that Android are working on an API for this. Don't quote me on this because I can't remember what I read recently. But I think then again, it's this notion of with the advent of APKs turned to AABs bundles. You upload a bundle. And it's pushed down to the changes are pushed down to your app, right? So that flow is not something that the user has to download per se, but it's the same thing. Like when a user starts up an app, I mean, you needed to go fetch the latest version of the app, right? Like this can all be sort of built into the ecosystem. It's just they're not there yet, right? And it's even bigger and more complicated for them because they're huge. The stores are huge, humongous. You can imagine the population of users that use their stores and the apps that are on them, apps that are on those stores is larger than any nation, right? So, yeah, it's a huge problem. Imagine what government problems there are. Imagine these big company problems that you get. All right,
yeah.
Moving on. Last question.
That doesn't make any sense out of context. So
that was from that previous question.
The on change for a text field thing.
That was it. Yeah, I want to get the changes for other widgets. Yeah, so you just watch. So this was for a text field controller, whatever it's called.
This one we brought up value listenable and went down a rabbit hole there.
Yeah. So all you need to do is on your text field controller do add listener. And you add a callback function, a function that will get called when the value changes. Then you go read those changes, and then you go send them somewhere. You can go update anything you want. Call a function to send it back, or get given a change notify and put the value in that. There's lots of ways of doing it, but just make sure that you remove your listener when you're done. So in your dispose of your widget, called remove listener, and with the same function name, you cannot use an anonymous function. You cannot just declare because each one is a different reference. But yeah, if you declare a method as a function and put in add and remove, then you won't get the callback still taking place and other fun things. But yeah, no, in short, just add listener to your controller.
Something, yes. So this is amazing. That was our last question, and we aimed to get a show that's under 2 hours. We aim for a show that's 90 minutes and start stopping the questions at 60 minutes. That's how this show runs.
Yeah.
We're learning the formulas. We're slowly learning the formulas. We liked it. We have long answers, though. We're happy with that.
Hopefully people find like what we're talking about interesting and it helps enlighten people. So Christian, yes, you've got us on the Slack group, so send it us over on there.
He did some stuff, and I forwarded a message to you about updating some of the previous ones. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So
what I'd like, I want to get Christian. Yeah, message me on the Slack, and then we can get you added on the YouTube and get things worked out because the comments don't work, and also I've been having to cut them down before because the questions get really long. So it's just about chapter headings, so people can find questions and answers. So really appreciate your time, Christian, on getting those together. It really does help, honestly, especially when people come back to it. We've briefly before we end the show, I'll talk about this. We've spoken a lot about the format of the show, and one of the reasons why we're trying to sort of lessen the time the show is on is because people don't revisit a 3-hour stream, right?
No,
people it just doesn't happen, right? So you can't imagine that someone's going to come back to one of these. You have to be here for the stream. We get a lot of people coming back and viewing it, but I think they're going to come back for a particular question and answer, and that's where Christian's help in chapterizing that really does help, because I can't imagine someone just sitting down and listening to us prattle on and answer questions for 3 hours. So this is all about the interactivity of the show right now. There are some maybe short form, more sort of engaging content we can kind of come up with, and we'd love your input. So again, comment on our videos, and we'll see them, and maybe we can change the direction. But one of the things that I think this was a while ago when me and Randall were speaking about this was maybe a code review. So you submit so we have people submit their repositories on GitHub, and then we can check them out and on the stream, and we can go through them and review it. And this is about someone that's willing. These people that would do this, they have to be willing to have criticism, but in a good way. Whatever we're going to be talking about is not meant in any harsh way. It's all going to be constructive. It's like, you don't want to do it like this because of X, Y, and Z, because of performance. You should do it like this. That's better. And we can actually show all the things that you can do better. And honestly, the people that watch these things, they're going to get so much from that, right? Because that's what you get with experience.
If you do submit something that uses one of those weird packages that we typically are poo-pooing, you will get ribbed. Yes. So don't bother doing that. We will already tear into it if it's that unmentionable one, for example. We're not very shy about mentioning that.
Oh, we're not brutal, shush.
We're not brutal. No.
We can be critical,
but we're right. But we're right. When we are right, we're right.
Yeah. We're definitely right.
Love the cup. That's great. That's great.
So,
private repo if you invite us to it, but then it's going to be public anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, not full access, but it's going to be seen if it's on the show.
Honestly,
we hope
either way, but obviously we need access to it. So
yeah,
it certainly doesn't make it easy to make it private. So
no,
there's no reason why we couldn't look at it. So yeah, you've got if people don't know, you can leave comments. Obviously, comments are a bit difficult to put links and so on for restricted access. So we always recommend reach out and email. And I'm trying to.
It's only comments in the chat. It's only comments in the chat that are that seem to be restricted. You comments in the YouTube seem to be available to put links.
They can be restricted though, so it can be picked up as spam, and we might not see it, and then we have to allow it and filter it and so on. Right. So yeah, always if you want to contact us, send us an email, us@fluttercommunity.dev. You'll find not just us, but there's plenty of other people there. So make sure you address it to Humpday Q&A or something. So other people.
Or go to any of the social net communities about Flutter and see me. I am there. I am everywhere. I'm Randall Schwartz, pretty much everywhere. Sometimes a little GE sticker after it, but
find us on the Slack and Discords and all that kind of fun stuff. We're there.
Yeah, everything that's available, I'm there every day.
Cool.
Every hour.
All right, we're gonna end the show.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I got stuff to go do. I've got a paying client I've got to deal with.
I've got work to do as well. I want to get this work done. That's been banging on for a while now. So anyway, all right.
Right. I'm converting provider to Riverpod. Isn't that exciting?
Oh,
yes.
Isn't that exciting? Yes.
It's exciting and fun and painstaking. Yes. All right. Great. Let's go. Let's go. Push the button.
See you in 166 hours or something. Right.
That's right.